Nick Whalen, John McKechnie here with you, breaking down conference championship weekend in the NFL. John, objectively, one of the best football weekends of the year. There's no question about that. With that said, the scaries are starting to set in, man. I mean, we have 3 football games left. I'm not counting the Pro Bowl. We have 3 games left in the NFL season. I don't like this one bit. I missed the 16 game NFL Week 17. I don't care if half the games are crap.
I'm with you, man. Although football for me ended last Sunday night, I have bowling to look forward to, as you can tell by my really cool getup. Legend of the bowling alley. Go save the bees, or no, spare the bees. We're spare the bees when it's bowling season.
Because of the spare.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty witty. So year 4 of that. Excited. Opening night tonight. Steve Belanda, our resident bowling guru, I'm sure will be paying close attention to my props for this week. But yeah, I mean, it is wild that we're just down to the last 4 teams. We got 2 this Sunday. I do think that they're both phenomenal matchups with a lot to unpack for each. I wish that there was a different team in the AFC championship game, but we're gonna let bygones be bygones. I'm very objective on this show. Let's be real scientific with it.
Yeah, I asked you to pull back the curtain a little bit. I'm like, do we want to do a Ravens postmortem? And you're like, no, let's just focus on the games. I feel like we're teetering on the edge, and I don't want to dive into that. I'm sure some Ravens analysis will probably come up when we talk about the AFC Championship game. We're not going to mess around with picking certain games that we want to talk about. We only got 2. All right. So we'll talk through both. We'll discuss the sides, the totals. Like I said, we'll get you some props later in the show as well. We'll go chronological order. It's the NFC's turn to lead us off this year. So it feels fitting, right? I mean, Bills Chiefs, I think, should be the nightcap on Sunday. But in the mid-afternoon window, Commanders, Eagles, saw this one open around 4.5, was quickly up to 5.5, now as high as 6.5. At the FanDuel Sportsbook. I know you're leaning Philly here. Does it matter? Does the hook matter here? Are we looking at an emphatic Philly win? I'll let you lead us off talking about the NFC title game.
Yeah, that is a great question. You can still get a 6 over at Bet Rivers. So if that's more your jam, obviously we landed right on the 6. I think in the Eagles-Rams game last week. So the hook actually did matter in that one. As far as the push was concerned, I think that was kind of like the only thing that was salvageable from my picks last weekend. But, I digress. But I do like Philly here. It's something where Washington has been an incredible story all season, really. I think you look back to that Monday night game in Cincinnati, Jaden Daniels hits that throw, like getting hit, touchdown, and you're like, wait a second. Like, that's like kind of guys who are just figuring it out, like they don't make that type of play. So at that exact moment, it's like, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe they can sneak into a wild card. And they did that. And they've done it just kind of in amazing fashion. No one was excited about the Dan Quinn hire. No one was excited about the Cliff Kingsbury hire. Everyone felt like, okay, you get Jaden Daniels, but he's not better than Caleb Williams. Everything is kind of broken right for them this year. And I love how aggressive Washington is. They're so good in situational setups, 3rd and 4th down, extending those drives. It was something that we talked about going into that Buccaneers game where it's like, okay, this is a team that, are they going to be able to sustain these long, drives that last for half the quarter or more? And they've been able to do that. And then last week, they just went into the Lions' den, literally, and just punched them in the mouth. Like, it was insane I could not believe what I was seeing on Saturday night. All this a preamble to say, I think the ride ends here. I think that there is a really important injury from that game on the Washington side, especially when you look at the matchups for this particular game. Sam Cosmi going down with the torn ACL, I think, is a massive, massive problem for this Washington team. He was their best offensive lineman, plays on the interior. That's bad when you're playing a Philadelphia team that probably has the best defensive interior in the league and one of the best front sevens generally. It's hard to imagine this game going in a way in which Jaden Daniels isn't, kind of running for his life throughout the afternoon. And I think that's going to put them behind the sticks, put them off schedule, and then things could get a little bit messy from there. So I really just think that it comes down to Philadelphia's defense here, just getting this Washington offense off schedule. Washington was the sixth best offense in terms of red zone touchdown percentage this year, but Philly ranked top 5 in red zone touchdown percentage allowed. I give the edge to Philly here, especially with Washington maybe not being able to get that push, that punch up front against Jalen Carter and company. And then really my only note for the Eagles offense is just they got Saquon. They got a great offensive line. Like they don't really need a whole lot else. We've seen it the first 2 playoff games. I mean, Jalen Hurts had the big touchdown run early last week, but really it comes down to, Saquon carrying this offense, and I think he'll do it yet again. He had a lot of success against Washington in the 2 games this season. I look for that again, and I think ultimately, things are going to snowball in Washington. Give me Philly and the points.
So I'm going to take Washington with the points here. And everything you said does not make me feel great about that, because those were all very good points. I am very concerned that I'm a week late on this. Yeah, I thought the ride was going to end last week in Detroit. I thought it was going to be, mid fourth quarter, Detroit's up like 17, and we're just saying all the platitudes when it comes to Jaden Daniels. What a great rookie season. This team will be back. This is the first of many runs. And it was anything but that. And, again, I'm concerned that maybe I've missed the boat here. And, this is the week that they finally run out of steam. Teams like this, you can look at any sport, right? Like the team that kind of arrives early rarely makes it to the mountaintop the first time, and certainly I think Washington will be back. This could be the end of the line. Absolutely. I think Washington, for one, they're playing with house money. There's never been a bigger house money team in a championship game. Like this will not be a disappointment if they lose. I said the same thing against Detroit, and they go in there and they just dominated the lines the entire game. I mean, that was obviously Detroit turning it over 5 times. That's going to be part of it, but yeah, I think you got to give credit to Washington for forcing those turnovers. Washington not committing a single turnover in either of these first 2 postseason games. I think that's been among the many great things you could say about Jane Daniels this season. Taking care of the football, right? Not taking sacks, not taking negative plays. Maybe that does change this week. I think you're totally right to point out the Cosme injury. I mean, that is a very big deal for a team that had more success on the ground last week against Detroit than I expected them to. I mean, Brian Robinson ran for 77 yards. His rushing yards prop right now at DraftKings is 37.5. 37.5. That's not good. That is not good. If you look at him and Eckler combined, they're basically forecasted to finish under 60 total yards between the two of them. And that means this game is going to be on Jaden Daniels. I don't think Washington wins. I would be very surprised if the Commanders win outright. But I think Philly has shown enough vulnerability, defensively, certainly at the end of that Rams game. Saquon has the long run with, what was that, 7 or 8 minutes left. He's banging on his head, and it ended up being an amazing moment. But the Rams looked so dead in the water at that point. Matthew Stafford wanted no part of playing in the snow. And then Philly allows, a long touchdown drive. They basically go 3 and out. Hurts takes the sack, and the Rams drive right down again. And if the Rams center doesn't miss his assignment and Stafford doesn't take that sack to push him back, I think there's a pretty good chance the Rams finish off that drive with another touchdown. And we're talking about Rams Commanders this week. So it really, for the second straight week, it's like, yeah, Philly won. For most of the game, they dominated, but there's still just kind of something missing. And I do believe that they can flip that switch in the passing game. They showed us that, during the regular season when they wanted to prove to everybody they could throw the ball. I think that is there, but this is the week they're going to need it. I don't think you can necessarily get away with just running the ball, throwing it to Dallas Goedert a couple times, giving AJ Brown 1 or 2 targets. And, for a team that hasn't had to dig into that in like a month and a half at this point, I think there is some concern. So to me, the back door is going to be open. Washington is so aggressive from start to finish that they're going to maximize their scoring opportunities. They're not going to be this team that's taking cowardly punts and, taking themselves out of scoring opportunities. So I think the Eagles win this game, but at 6.5, I will take Washington to cover.
I'd like it. I'd love to see that. I think a close game is what everyone is hoping for in this one. I think it would add to the great story that has been this Washington team. But I mean, this Eagles roster is just, it's so good. It's so weird to have a team that's this good where like the quarterback is like the 5th or 6th best player on his offense, but that's right. Kind of the deal here. But I mean, that offensive line is unbelievable. Yeah. Like when you watch the broadcast and they show the PFF grades, like everyone's like in the top 10. Like it's so insane. And then, the same goes for that defense. So I think ultimately that's going to do it. It's Jaden Daniels versus the Eagles. And I will take the Eagles in that spot, but I can't deny the magic that's going on in Washington. The people are buzzing. Like, I got phone calls from friends in high school last weekend that were just like, what do I do? This is completely like foreign territory to me. Like, ever since we've been friends, ever since I've been alive, we haven't been this far. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. This is I have no perspective here. It's never been like this for me. This is crazy.
Yeah, you're just like Google, Washington fans furiously Googling, like, what is the NFC Championship game? Where is this game being played? Interesting footnote that was going around too is that with Washington now making the NFC Championship game, every team in the NFC has made it more recently than the Cowboys, which I'm not just trying to throw strays at Dallas, but that's an insane stat.
I mean, yeah, you look at the balance of the NFC. It's like, dang, the Cardinals have been there a lot more recently. The Panthers have been there.
Cardinals
a lot
have done
more
it multiple times, I think, right?
Yeah,
Panthers have too.
It's true. It's gosh, for the amount of oxygen that Dallas has, it's that's got to be sobering for them. But everyone likes taking their pot shots at Dallas. They're cool with it. I think
they deserve it. They deserve
it.
I will say that. One thing I want to mention with this game before we move on to the AFC, I was looking at some long shot Super Bowl MVP bets, and it's like, maybe you want to wait until after we know who's actually in the Super Bowl, but obviously you're going to get a little bit more value right now if you feel strongly about one side. We both think Philly's winning this game. What you said about Jalen Hurts is what kind of sparked this. It's a really interesting situation because Jalen Hurts is obviously not a game manager. Like, he was amazing in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But I do agree with you. He's not really the focal point of this team. If anything, he's kind of been upstaged, by his own running back this year. I could totally see Philly winning the Super Bowl and having it be another one of these Jalen Hurts, 147 passing yards games where, maybe they play Kansas City and the Chiefs just can't get anything going offensively. It's low scoring. Could I talk you into either Zach Bond or Jalen Carter 100-1 Super Bowl MVP?
You certainly can. I mean, we're talking about a couple of complete game records there. Guys that, in Carter's case, could have all these tackles for loss, can force some turnovers. Zach Bond can get to the backfield, get to the passer, and sack, get a sack or two, maybe force a turnover in his own right. So, I mean, both those guys are kind of like the dudes in an offense full of a defense full of dudes. I like where your head's at on this.
Jalen Hurts has never thrown for more than 154 yards in an Eagles playoff win. Just think about that. That is a pretty insane stat. So whenever he's throwing for more yards, the Eagles are not losing, or the Eagles are not winning. A defensive player, by the way, has not won Super Bowl MVP since Von Miller in that Panthers-Broncos Super Bowl. So it feels like we're due. Before that, it was like every 4 or 5 years it was happening. Let's go to the AFC Championship game here, John. Tighter spread. You'll see a lot of 1.5s out there. There are some 2s. That's what I'm seeing at Bet Rivers. That's what I'm seeing at Bet MGM. FanDuel and DraftKings still hanging on at 1.5 in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs. I will allow you to speak first. I will say I am leaning Kansas City here, but I am also acknowledging full well that the Bills have looked like the better team for almost the entire season.
And that's where I'm going with it. And this is fully acknowledging that again, betting against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs is a fool's errand, but I'm a fool. I will walk into that trap. In this particular setup, I just am so impressed by Buffalo, the way that they've played this year and what was supposed to be kind of like a down year for them. They don't have a ton of star power in the receiving core. The defense, it has, played great. And, they have this way about them where they're able to force turnovers. They're able to, not let the splash plays really happen to them. But offensively, the Bills have kind of adopted like the current Chiefs mode where they're just impossible to stop over 4 downs when you're talking about them getting 10 yards. Like they are just so good situationally. You get them to like 3rd and 3, and it might as well just be a first down. Once again, for a fresh set of downs for this Bills team, whether it's James Cook, whether it's Josh Allen, like they are going to plow ahead and get that first down. The Bills offensively, in the red zone in particular, and I do think that they're going to have success getting down there. The number 2 team in red zone touchdown rate. The number 1 team was the Ravens, alas. But still, over 2/3 of their drives into the red zone, they are scoring touchdowns. Now, the Chiefs are 7th in touchdowns allowed in the red zone, but I still give the edge to Buffalo when comparing those metrics. And I think that, that we saw it a couple times last week for the Bills. Like they are, again, if it's 10 yards or if it's a goal to go situation, they are just really, really difficult to stop. That offensive line has really gotten beefed up over the last couple of years. So I just think that, maybe there is something a little bit, I'm more willing to buy into the Buffalo magic than I am the Washington one right now. And I just can't, like, if you were to blind resume it when it comes to the Chiefs this year and even take the record out, just show me the numbers. And I'm not going to come away that impressed by them. And of course, Mahomes does incredible things. That touchdown to Kelsey last week was, proof that he's more than still got it, and that Kelsey can still kind of cobble it together for a Super Bowl run. So, I mean, I feel extremely nervous about this one, but again, 2 games, you got to pick a side. I do think Buffalo is playing at a higher level right now. I think Josh Allen is playing at a higher level right now. So for me, I'm taking the plunge. I'm saying the Bills money line.
I like it, man. I like it. I'm feeling increasingly shaky about my Commanders pick, but we will be riding with that. This one, I'm just going to dig my heels in on the Chiefs, man. And it's everything you said is correct. Buffalo has been the better team. You could find just about any metric you want. It's going to point you to Buffalo. The Bills obviously won straight up over the Chiefs earlier this season, back in November, and that game was at home. But still, I was hoping we'd see a little bit more from Kansas City last week against Houston. I mean, that was kind of an ideal divisional matchup, and you're hoping that, all right, maybe the Chiefs will show us that they have made some progress over the final quarter of the season offensively, and they came out with one of their worst offensive games of the year. 212 yards of offense, far and away the fewest yards in a playoff win for a team that did not force a turnover. I had to, of course, go to StatHead to look this up, John. And we had to raise the parameters here. So teams that put up less than 285 yards of offense, which is way more than the Chiefs put up, and did not force a turnover, those teams were 1-64 straight up in playoff games in the Super Bowl era prior to last Saturday. So this is the kind of Chiefs witchcraft that we're talking about here. But to me, it's become their identity. It's not a fluke because it's the Chiefs. If it was any other team, I would say, how are they getting this done? How can they keep doing this? But it's the Chiefs, man. They're the 2-time defending champions. We kind of saw this from them last year. It feels like they've ratcheted up the difficulty to another level. I mean, almost like a team that's just bored out there. And they're like, yeah, I wonder if we could win a playoff game putting up under 215 yards. Let's see if we can do it. And they can, because they're the Chiefs, because they have Patrick Mahomes and they're at home. Home field to me is worth more than whatever it's normally worth in a game like this. You give the Chiefs home field with a chance to cash in on the three-peat. I think that really matters to them. I've been saying that all year. They're not going to come out and say it, but look, nobody's ever three-peated, man. This is about as much history as you can make, unless they get to a point where, Patrick Mahomes is challenging Tom Brady for total number of Super Bowls. I mean, this is your chance to solidify yourself not only as the modern dynasty, but, maybe the dynasty, right? I mean, no one's ever done this before. So I think that really matters to the Chiefs. I think you brought up a great point on Travis Kelce. It's very clear to me that they were playing it safe with him. I think during the regular season, he's not the player that he was 2 or 3 years ago, but I think he has more left in the tank than he showed us during the regular season. So I think he's going to be a weapon. We didn't really see, a ton of Hollywood Brown last week. I think he gets more involved. Xavier Worthy continues to be a big piece for them down the stretch. And you just know how this game is going to go, John. There's going to be 4 minutes left. The Chiefs will be down 1. And there's going to be that 3rd and 3 around midfield. And it's am I betting that Patrick Mahomes is going to pick that up or not? I'm betting that he is. They're going to get in field goal range. Bucker's going to make it, and the Chiefs are going to win and cover.
I just had the entire vision play out before my eyes. I mean, it's easy
we've seen it.
We've seen it before, of course. Yeah, but
it's not even a vision. You could just turn on any Chiefs playoff game.
I see it now. Although I can't tell how hurt Romo will be about that, because he loves both these quarterbacks so much. I mean, the broadcasts are brutal whenever he's calling either of them. The Matt Milano stuff last week, I think, was about to drive me up a wall. And that, that's not even counting the Josh Allen stuff. So yeah, that he's going to be in a tricky spot for how much he's just lavishing the praise on. But he's going to get his chance to. Wow, Jim.
But the Milano call on the Lamar interception was just
look at him. He kind of ran at the quarterback. He's 5 yards away from him. He caused that.
I don't want to prickle you too much here, by the way, but one thing I do need to mention from last week, and this kind of ties into part of the reason I like KC, is that like obviously the Bills deserve a lot of credit for beating the Ravens. I thought the Ravens were the best team in the NFL. It's a win. You're at home. It's a win. I don't care how it happened.
Yeah.
The Ravens lost that game more than the Bills took it from them. I was not super impressed by the Bills in that game. I don't feel like they're riding this crazy wave of momentum. And that reminded me of a Chiefs playoff win. Honestly, the way that they've won games, it's like, all right, we're just going to sit back. We're going to, we'll play it pretty conservative. They didn't really do a whole lot offensively in the entire second half. And they're just like, we're going to sit back and let you make the mistakes. And I didn't think Baltimore would make the mistakes. Of course they did. And I think we have like almost a standoff, kind of a Spider-Man meme between the Bills and the Chiefs. Like neither of these teams commit turnovers. Bills are like borderline historic in their low turnover rate. Chiefs haven't turned it over since week 11. I think there might be a little bit of dancing around of like, all right, we're feeling each other out. Who's going to make that mistake first? My money says it's Buffalo. I think, again, both these teams are so rock solid, but I think if somebody's going to crack, it's going to be the Bills. Where I was going with this is that I thought sneakily the biggest play of the game last week in Bills-Ravens was the pass interference on Trey White. That was absolutely offensive pass interference.
Yep. It was. It set the Bills up in great position. I think that came on like third down and some distance.
It was like
there.
Third and 7. Yeah, and that was right before the half, and they cashed in a touchdown.
Yep. So that changed a lot of things. I may or may not have kicked the table at that point and uttered an oath or two. That was brutal, and it's all for naught. Like you can't really like complain about it on the internet. Everyone else is, so it's just like I'll let everyone else have it. But that was awful. Obviously, the Andrews fumble was terrible, and the sort of not the best pass, but certainly hit Andrews in the hands. 2-point conversion.
That was a pretty good throw. I mean, that was I don't know where
it got there. But I think that where people kind of run away with the Andrews drop is in. I think you do raise an interesting point that the Bills weren't playing great in the second half, but they still would have had a minute 33 to get in field goal range. 100%. Tyler Bass kicking that field goal with 51 was, I think, also massive. I mean, that changed how the Ravens had to do things in the end game. And if you truth serum to that entire Buffalo crowd, did they think that he was going to make that in the snow without Bass's kick this year? I don't think so.
No, you're right. It's a great point. I didn't think he was making it. And to go back to the PI as a Ravens bettor and somebody who, just for your sake more than anything wanted the Ravens to win, like I'm clapping when I saw the flag. I'm like, there's no way that's not offensive pass interference. Like back them up. They don't even have a chance at a long field goal now. I couldn't believe it. I mean, in real time, it looked maybe more like a bang bang play, and then you see the replay. It's like how do you make that call? I don't want to overhash that, but my goodness. All right, let's get to the props, John. I'll let you run through your list first.
Okay, so it's hard to find value on anything Saquon Barkley related.
Yep.
Except first touchdown. So I will take that at plus 340. You can get that over at DraftKings. Travis Kelce, you can still get plus money on his anytime touchdown. So with that in mind, with it being January, I'm going to do that. That's plus 125 for an anytime Travis Kelce touchdown over at DraftKings. I like a Zach Ertz anytime touchdown. It's hard to find many cracks in this Philly defense, but former Eagle, he's had some success in the red zone this year. I think if Washington gets down there, he's the guy, especially because I'm doubtful about their ability to run it in close situation there. Give me an Ertz anytime touchdown that's plus 295. I like the price there. De'Ami Brown, over 45.5 receiving yards. I will say, of all the magical things that have happened in this Washington playoff run, the Daniels to Brown connection, I think, is really interesting to me. And I think that basically what I'm saying here is that the books maybe, and this is foolish, I know, but maybe they haven't caught up. Maybe they haven't bought in quite yet. De'Ami Brown was a really good prospect, in my opinion. It's been disappointing how long it's taken him, but I'm not completely shocked that, if you fast forwarded me from draft night to right now and showed me what he's doing in the postseason, I wouldn't have been stunned. So I will take an over 45.5 receiving yards for him. And again, I don't think weather's going to be a big factor in Philly. So I think throwing it going to be, conditions will be just fine. And give me an under on Jalen Hurts' passing yardage. That's 184.5.
Yep. I got that one as well. I think history strongly dictates if we think the Eagles are winning this game, Hurts is going well under that number. So I think we got to follow in line there. I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes over 4.5 rush attempts. This just feels like a really low number to me for a guy who's gone over in 5 of his last 6 playoff games. There's always like the one or two Mahomes runs that come out of nowhere at a huge time. It's like 3rd and 14. You're like, how are they possibly going to pick this up? And there Mahomes goes. You could also be looking at some kneel outs that count here. If you are like me and you think the Chiefs are going to win. So over 4.5 there. Josh Allen over 30.5 pass attempts. He's thrown the ball 39 and 40 times in the last 2 meetings against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm looking at Kenneth Gainwell over 10.5 rushing yards. Everybody wants to focus on Saquon. His rushing yards props continue to skyrocket, but they mix Gainwell in every now and then. And, I think kind of a change of pace guy. If he gets 2 or 3 carries in this game, that could be enough to get him to 11 yards. I like both tight ends in the NFC title game. Dallas Goedert over 37.5 receiving yards. Zach Ertz over 3.5 receptions. I do think Washington, they're not going to be able to run the ball super effectively. They're probably going to have to resort to the pass. A lot of those kind of shorter check down type of throws to Zach Ertz. Same line of thinking here with Austin Eckler. Had 9 targets in the only game that he played against Philly earlier this season. Was not available for the second meeting. But I think this is more of an Eckler spot on the Washington side. I did think about including Kelsey anytime touchdown, by the way, but we can't tempt fate. He brought home the 47-1 parlay last week. So I'm staying away from that one.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, what are you doing still podcasting? Where's your island?
I'm not going to disclose how much I put on it, but let's just say it was not enough to necessarily impact the bottom line. But man, we got a little wild. We mixed in some NBA, some props, lingering still from wild card weekend. We had a James Harden over 6.5 assists in there, and all we needed going into last weekend was a Kelsey touchdown, and thank God we got it.
My God, what a get. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was wild. I took a screenshot and sent it to my wife, and she's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Baby, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it."
You see all those zeros next to the plus sign? That means it's good.
Yeah, she's like, "Why did you only put $5 on it?" I'm like, "Well, that's why, man."